Untimely penalties against a red-hot power play, a recipe for disaster.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, January 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. So you can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers and on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. You can follow the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And if you are watching on the YouTube, please subscribe and don't forget to press that like button on the video. So the Florida Panthers lose to the Detroit Red Wings by a final score of 5-2 at home, where the story of the game was special teams for both of these teams. As we spoke for this one, the Red Wings came in with a really hot power play after the coaching change, and it continued on Thursday night against the Florida Panthers, where the Detroit Red Wings score on their on 3 of their first 4 power plays for them. The Panthers did cut it to they did tie the game twice, both one within 2 minutes and one within 30 seconds, but still the penalty trouble remained for the Panthers, and really the big difference in this one. And here to recap this 5-2 loss here for the Florida Panthers on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. It is a Friday, which means it's a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. Nick, first time in almost 4 years that the Florida Panthers lose in regulation to the Detroit Red Wings. At one point, it was more than 10 in a row before they lost in overtime at this point last year against the Detroit Red Wings at home. But another streak comes to an end for the Panthers. And this time it's against a Red Wings team that, although the Panthers dominated on 5-on-5, it was untimely penalties for the Panthers, and then the Detroit Red Wings capitalizing it. So what are your biggest takeaways from this one? Oh, you're on mute.
Undisciplined, and it seems like they basically burned all the gas that they had in their tank in the first period. Just not an overall good game, I'm going to say, from anybody outside of the third line. I know that Evan Rodriguez ended up scoring, and Samoskevich, assisted on that nice goal. But other than that, your big horses and the players that you expect to show up and lead were absent once again. So it's very kind of troubling to see that this has been going on for a couple of weeks now. And you have to wonder if there's something going on around the room, injuries, if people are not 100%, health-wise, like, if they're sick or not. But at the same time, it's the dog days of the season. You at least gotta, I don't know, you gotta show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you hope for the Panthers. It's a little bit of a wake-up call. I mean, Detroit, I even said this on X, that they were in the position that the Panthers were just 2 years ago, that they can't afford to take any nights off. But I just think of all the penalties that the Panthers took, and just the timing of them. I mean, the first one that they commit, it's while they're on the power play, and then it's a puck battle, and then Erod gets his stick under, and then 2 of the penalties where Tkachuk had one of them, and where it was under the armpit of the opposition for the Detroit Red Wings, the one on Simon Edvinsson, and then Nate Schmidt hooking on Patrick Kane, where they're getting it under the armpit. I mean, yeah, the referee's behind the play, but it's a smart veteran move for the opposition to do that, where you see someone reaching and say, hey, if I get this under, I know Matthew Tkachuk let it go, but still, I mean, you catch yourself in a high position. The broadcast even said it, that's what happens when you don't keep your stick on the ice sometimes. I know we talk about it mostly about when teams are creating shots, but you think about when it remains there and you're still reaching and you're still behind the play, it's going to bite you.
It definitely is, and I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, it is a veteran move. Once a player gets their stick in on your hands, all you got to do is kind of like pinch your elbow down a little bit, and then it's very hard for them to kind of like pull back from that. But I think what's more concerning is that the team is taking a lot more of these penalties right now, and it looks like to me that they're lazy penalties. It means that they're getting beat, they're not winning puck battles,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, they're running around. So uh, it's just not a good sign right now. And I did kind of say this, a few days ago, that this team is probably tired.
Mm-hmm.
I think honestly they went through the holiday break. They had a few days off, but after that, I mean, they're not going to have any breaks until the Four Nations tournament's going to start. So, we'll see. And my main concern for that, coming up to the Four Nations, is that the Panthers have 8 players going to be playing in that, and some of the most crucial players that probably need time off, they're not going to get any.
Yeah. And we want the four guys on the Four Nations to have as much success. We know that a Panther is going to win it, but I guess with Finland having the most players, you want them to be the most rested for the playoffs. So maybe, hopefully, Finland doesn't make it to the final, so they don't have that extra game for them. Not that we're rooting against Barkov and everything for them,
Red,
but
white, and blue.
yeah. So of course, absolutely. But even for the Panthers, even in the first period, I mean, getting it in the Red Wings, and they're winning a whole bunch of their faceoffs, and even when it was 1-1, I mean, the Panthers were creating some intimidation, where they even drew a penalty because of a retaliatory hit that Eetu Luostarinen had on Justin Hall. So it's like, okay, maybe this is a continuation of what was going on in New Jersey, but you think of all just so much momentum killing for them, and just shooting themselves on the foot. I mean, Etu later had 2 chances on the same shift after the Panthers made it 2-2. I mean, the goal that that Anton Lundell scored, that was a few minutes after Verhaeghe first hit the crossbar. So at least Verhaeghe's still creating chances for the Panthers, but still, when it comes to just the coverage of the untimely penalties, and then the coverage on the penalties against a red hot team, I mean, even on that first power play, which Jonathan Berggren, no power play goals in 20 games, and with that unit being hot and then adding another one, you smelled trouble. And on that power play goal again specifically, the Panthers were actually denying them entries, and then once they got it together, they fed it to the left flank, and then I don't know if Kulikov necessarily screened Bobrovsky there, but beat him on the far side there for them. And then there was that backdoor play to Dylan Larkin, and then those last two to Sergei Bobrovsky on the short side, where it was just a late reaction, then just squeezing through him. So just an odd game for the Panthers, and just a chance to put a stranglehold, but it was just, you think about different phases of the game, and that, even though it's a short period of part of the game, it proved costly.
So Panthers, especially Sam Reinhart and Alexander Barkov, have had a lot of success on the penalty kill this year. I mean, we have 11 shorthanded goals. And they have 11 shorthanded goals. Reinhart having 5, leading the league right now. So you can probably see that he was cheating a little bit on that first one that Berggren ended up scoring on. And you know, sometimes the best defense is the best offense, but sometimes on the PK, maybe the best defense is the best defense, and being conservative, especially when a team's coming in playing as well as they have. And you got to give credit to the Red Wings. They they really kind of stuck with it. They got punched in the mouth a couple times in the first period. I mean, it seemed like the puck was in their defensive zone much of the first period, and Cam Talbot stood tall. And if it wasn't for the third line, going into the dirty areas and also getting a dirty goal, this game might be a little bit different. So just I think just a culmination of cheating, and then on top of that, just not wanting to, go to the areas that you need to win the game following the first period is what doomed them.
Yeah, and then you're talking about just getting beat and getting behind on that backdoor feed from Patrick Kane to Dylan Larkin. I mean, you see Alex DeBrincat cutting into into the slot there, and then you see Mikkola and Sam Reinhart trying to go for a check, and then once he gets past both of them, it's like, then you have someone to have to slide over, and that creates some chaos around the whole entire unit, where Mikkola can't even protect that backdoor feed, which great feed by Patrick Kane to get it through the feet of Bjornfoot. But I'm not gonna put that too much on Bjornfoot there. But that's also what happens when you don't complete a check.
Correct.
That's what happens there, and that really proved costly. And really the Panthers trying to play catch up. Bob gets pulled after the fourth goal, which is the second time he got chased this season. First time came against Minnesota on the day of the Frozen Frenzy, but Paul Maurice waited until after the third period to pull him there. So I like the move. I like the move to get him, get Spencer Knight in right there after just how quick that fourth goal happened for that. But we're going to talk about that and more continuing on in the second segment, where we're going to discuss more about our 3 duds and also discuss the moment where we thought the game was lost. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. So the FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and there's a variety of bets that keeps the game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. Whether you're betting on maybe the Baltimore Ravens winning in Orchard Park against the Buffalo Bills, you can add some extra excitement to the playoffs. FanDuel has you covered. So just visit FanDuel.com. Join today to get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Segment number 2 here on this Friday, January 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So Nick, our 3 duds of the game for this 5-2 loss for the Florida Panthers against the Detroit Red Wings. Number 3, I'm going to go with Alexander Barkov. 1 shot on goal in the game. There was one breakout where it was very head scratching, where it was just like, you feel like Barkov was, the attention to detail wasn't there, and then he gets easily checked on that one, and then it just creates more zone time. It was like 30-45 seconds more of zone time for him, and also the adjustments of the Detroit Red Wings, of what Ryan Callahan spoke about on the broadcast about them not relying on the rimming it around, where the Panthers can get a forechecker in. Also great. That was a great adjustment that they made there for them. And also on the fourth goal, there was a rim around that Barkov thought Tkachuk was there near the blue line, and then that ended up in the rush even before Gustav Forsling ended up sweeping the puck up the neutral zone to at least get some guys back right before Sergei Bobrovsky let that one in. Number 2 is Gustav Forsling. On that Patrick Kane goal, I couldn't tell. The broadcast said that it touched his stick, but I saw the replay a few times. I still couldn't tell with that. You need a guy to body in front there on that one. When it's a 2-2 game, that it's unlike Gustav Forsling to not get his body in front, and then that ends up in the back of the net. And then number 1 dud, Sergei Bobrovsky, 2 goals on the short side on those last one. And then Paul Maurice spoke about sometimes you get unlucky when it comes to him getting pulled. And after 7 straight starts of 3 goals or less, now the last 3 have been 4 goals or more. And we spoke about 4 nations. With the amount of back-to-backs and Sergei Bobrovsky not playing in the 4 nations, this is great. If there's one person who needs rest, that's the silver lining in all of this for the Panthers, in all of this. But your 3 duds for this one.
So who to choose on this team right now? How about Alexander Barkov? He's been it's very concerning to see him over the last couple games because number one, I don't see him taking over games, defensively or even making a huge push offensively. He's losing the puck in the defensive zone, or he's overthinking it, and then he gets stripped like he did tonight. And he did this, I think, against Philadelphia, where he was not there. So you have to wonder what's going on with him. And it's just he's not leading right now. I don't feel like he's leading right now. My second dud is going to be Matthew Tkachuk. Continues to be erratic with the puck. He's causing a lot of turnovers, and he's just whipping the puck wherever he wants to. And I've said that for the last couple episodes, but I'm going to keep saying it because he keeps doing it, and he's causing the team to be out of position and lose valuable time, whether they're on the power play or maybe they're on the rush because he wants to do something that's fancy. Just simplify the game and just play what you know. Oh, and then the first dud is probably going to be Schmidt.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now, unfortunately, he's not the guy that we thought he was going to be coming in. I don't think he can quarterback the power play right now with Ekblad out. I just don't see what he gives defensively right now. He's getting beat. I mean, he took that penalty, on Kane because his stick was up. And on top of that, he is probably one of the main reasons why the Panthers spend most of the time in the D zone because when he goes to try and clear it, there's always a stick in the lane or he gets, stick checked and the puck doesn't get out. So, he's got to simplify his game too and just make sure that the puck gets out or he has the proper positioning so that he can actually help the team clear the zone.
And there's only so much that we could say about him just being on his offside and everything, and the fact is that the fact that he's not like the best skater for him neither doesn't help with that.
Mm-hmm.
So and puck protection has just been an issue from time to time when it comes to him breaking out the passes. So that is gonna that we see the flaws and we even spoke about it a few days ago just about what he's asked to do from lately, and he's playing 3 less minutes now than what he was when he was playing under Paul Maurice in Winnipeg. So yeah, he's used to a system with Paul Maurice. Yeah, but still, when it comes to at his age and trying to get more out of him when this blue line is already thin, I mean, we're seeing it how thin it truly is, and I mean. Once again, Ekblad being out doesn't help, but I mean, and he's likely not going to be playing on Saturday. Paul Maurice did say after morning skate that he'll likely return on Tuesday when the Panthers do head out west. So that's an update for the Panthers defenseman there for them. But still, it's just once again just. Whenever you're unable to just break it out of the zone and the opposition is getting their forecheck in, the Panthers just haven't are just taking these untimely penalties in the offensive zone. I mean, the goal that the penalty that Jesper Boquist got, not even a single argument, and that's because the Panthers were just unable to get it out. So it's just confusing over and over again why this team is just so undisciplined as they are. But the moment where we knew the game was lost, for me, it was the third power play goal against. When I saw it was 3, not 1, not 2, but 3, I said they're gonna get one not on the power play eventually, aren't they? It's just if they're this hot, there's no way that they could just get all their goals in one way, right? And then look what happens 2 minutes later. I know that was that really put the dagger in, but you had that feeling before the actual dagger. So the third power play goal for the Detroit Red Wings, that was my moment where the game lost, where I knew the game was lost. How about you?
It was definitely the Casper goal. I felt like the fourth goal is what really deflated the team. It's what got Bob pulled. And on top of that, like he was giving these goals up like 2 or 3 years ago. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know what it is, if it's a focus issue or if he just didn't expect it again. He's got to be better. He's got to play better, and he needs to. And the word I'm going to keep using is lead. I just, after what Spencer said about him after the game against New Jersey and everything, and come out with a performance after that is damning. And the way that he let down the team tonight is just, it's inexcusable. It was a winnable game in my opinion.
Absolutely.
As long as he didn't let that fourth goal in, because they would have pushed. They were pushing in the third period. They just couldn't get anything past. They just needed a lucky tip, and they could have actually walked away with a point tonight. So trying to be more positive about it, but at the same time, if you're going to let in a fluky goal like that, then I can understand why the wind came out of their sails.
Yeah, I think I'm what you just said. I think I'm gonna go with the former. I think he was expecting the shot, but I just think he is. Maybe his head's just not in it right now for this one. And I mean, uh, when you're talking about so many starts in a multi-year span for him, I mean, you think I was I mean with a guy being in his mid 30s and yeah, he's coming off the run. He's a Hall of Famer for sure. Uh, you would expect sometimes that there would be a head scratcher from him, at least one a game. But this was multiple in one game. That's the
Yeah.
thing. That's the problem. Is we don't see these too often from him, and that's maybe why I'm confident that he will bounce back from it. And
Hmm.
this isn't one of those stretches where you see four in a row and then Spencer coming through, that we're not calling for a starting goaltender change. I'm not
No.
calling for that, but we are starting to see maybe the signs of age for Sergei Bobrovsky when it comes to possibly that transition for them.
So let me throw a fact at you, or I guess I want you to guess. Who do you think's older, Bobrovsky or Talbot?
I'm going to say Talbot.
He is a year older, and he started his career about 3 years after Bobrovsky. So
Mhm.
I didn't know that until the other night when I was kind of looking up the matchups and everything. But Talbot looked like he was a young 30s goaltender coming in. He was making timely saves, tightening up against the post, because I know Lundell had a couple of shots that he was trying to go short side, and he was aggressive on the puck when it was up by the crease and everything. And I don't think he was going to let anything beat him tonight. So it shows that this Detroit team is now starting to buy into what they can be, or what a lot of people expect them to be, and they just needed the right coach or the right direction to point them there. And we'll see what happens. I mean, they're, I think, what, 2 or 3 points out of a playoff spot right now, so um, keep a lookout for them.
Hmm. Yeah, and for this one, um, Cam Talbot, University of Alabama, Huntsville, journeyman goaltender, definitely. And the part of Lundell that you were talking about, on the multiple chances, that was another part for. And I think you're talking about the power play towards the end of the game. I believe you're talking about, with
Correct.
like about 5 minutes left. The amount of chances that power play two had, and then when you see that they couldn't even get one pass, which the Red Wings came in with a third, giving up a third on their PK since Todd McClellan took over, and they couldn't solve Cam Talbot. 41 saves for him on the night, and just you got to tip your
He's
hat to
been
him.
good.
Yeah, and
He's been good for them.
yeah, for sure. And for the Panthers, it's now back to the drawing board for them to try to get back into their winning ways after it continues to be an up and down 2025. But we are going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to discuss more about the scoring drought that has been for the Panthers, and also get ready for Saturday's game against the Anaheim Ducks. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Third and final segment here on this Friday, January 17th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So, Nick, I think about the amount of droughts that have been going on around the team. I'm not gonna pick on Carter Verhaeghe too much of the droughts that he, because he had a primary assist even tonight. So, and we were speaking about that over the last few weeks. So, but Barkov, Bennett, Tkachuk, and we were talking about just cold stretches. But after a certain time, it's a trend. It's and the thing is, like, we look at the Boston game last week. It's like, wow, the Panthers played well. They dominated possession, but they didn't. But it ended up in the back of the net. And it's crazy because it's also crazy our perspective of what happens about when those goals come, because the Panthers were never behind by 2 last Saturday. But the thing is, the fact that it's like you and the backbreaking part is that you give up a lead, you tie it, back and forth, and then they pull away after, and then you notice that it's in the part of the game where you can control of not going into the box with just silliness of just undisciplined play. That's the tough part about all of this lately for the Panthers. And Ryan Callahan spoke about cup hangover, that when he was on the Tampa Bay Lightning after they lost in 2015 to Chicago, how that you have a whole bunch of energy in the beginning of the season, and how there's Tampa Bay's came in the mid later. So I feel like this is really where it's truly starting for the Panthers. And honestly, Nick, the Leafs won in overtime. Now they're 3 points ahead of the Panthers. I think we need to shift our focus. I think we need to shift our focus on just getting this team to getting back to scoring above 2 goals a game, and just getting back to the net front and trying to create their second chances, because I feel like because according to Money Puck, the Panthers rebound shots on net are in the top third of the league. That's the thing. That's the craziest part. And the fact that they're just not capitalizing on it. But at the same time, teams are closing in. They're playing tighter when they see that, again, the Panthers across from them. So their attention to detail is sky high for them.
Definitely is. And, teams are going to want to play the Cup champs and prove a point like, hey, we can play with them. And, we're out here to prove that, we can, do this on any given night. The other question I have is, what does the personnel look like on those rebounds? Like, what lines are creating those chances? And then on top of that, like, who is, actually in those dirty areas trying to get those rebounds? Because I can guarantee you last year, the people who were getting those dirty rebounds was probably Sam Reinhart, Barkov, and, the fourth line. How many big goals did the fourth line score last year, or even the third line score last year, to give the Panthers a boost? You're not seeing it here, and unfortunately, now that the top 2 lines are not scoring, it's even more compounded than that. But you say that they need like kind of a turnaround and everything. How about somebody else score than Reinhardt? I mean, he's been the most consistent player for them for the last 2 years, and I'm actually surprised at how much he's actually scored, because I've been waiting for him just to, go off a cliff, in his scoring. But who's going to step up, outside of the bottom 2 lines? It's got to be somebody else. They dropped Rodriguez down the fourth line. He scored tonight. So, who else is going to, take advantage, or at least try to make a difference in a game? Because right now I don't see a lot. And going into the next game, you're going to be meeting a former Panther in Radko Gudas, and there's a lot of Panthers who were not on the team that he was on.
Oh yeah.
How hard do you think he's going to make it for them?
Oh yeah. And I just double checked the stats just now. Sam Reinhart almost has double the amount of goals than the next best Panther in Matthew Tkachuk. 27, 14. So almost double.
He's not Pavel Bure, okay? Let's get that out of here, okay? No, that's the thing though, is that if Reinhardt has that many goals more than the Tkachuk, where's Barkov? Where's Verhaeghe? And I know, he's been doing more primary assists and putting the puck on net, but where's Bennett? He's in a contract year. What's going on with that?
And again, I don't like having Mackie Samoskevich with Sam Bennett, and if you're
No,
not going to have Kachuk there because you're going to trust a rookie to help a guy who a veteran who hasn't really created much lately. I don't know. That's the combination that I'm very unsure of when it comes to. I mean, you can't separate that third line right now with how they're playing. So
you
that's
can't.
I mean, you could, but they've been hot lately. I don't know if I want to break that up right now. So
I, I'll say this: I would move Lundell up to 2C right now because Ben is offering absolutely nothing, absolutely nothing.
okay.
And if you want to get Kachuk going, him and Lundell do have some chemistry. I do think that would work. I don't know if Mackey would work on the other wing, so maybe you bring up Boquist with him, and
Mhm.
they can work that with speed, grit, and somebody getting in front of the net. I honestly think that would be the perfect second line going into playing the Ducks.
No doubt. And speaking of the Ducks, the Panthers are 7-0-1 in their last 8 games against the Anaheim
I
Ducks.
wish you didn't tell me that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of streaks have ended this week alone for the Panthers, and with the Ducks coming into town, you mentioned Radko Gudas. There's a lot of guys who he hasn't played with, so maybe AJ Greer gets involved with the post whistle shenanigans. They did lose in a shootout tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and for Anaheim, the kids, they're trying to take that next step. Them over the last few years have been giving up a lot of shots. That's what's been a thing for the last few years of being pinned in their own zone. And Lucas Dostal, now the starter in
Yep.
Anaheim, has given them a chance night in and night out. And they also have another hard hitter in Jacob Trouba, who just recently got traded from the Rangers. And then they were able to flip Cam Fowler to the Blues right before his 1,000th game.
Yeah.
Crazy enough. But there have been players who have stepped up, like Jackson Lacombe, a second-round pick, who's now the quarterback on the power play. So there is now some progress on the defense. The Cutter Gauthiers and the Mason McTavishes, they've struggled to score. Zegras has fallen out of favor in Anaheim, but he's also hurt right now for the Ducks. So
What about Frankie Vetrano?
yeah, Frank Vetrano, the new contract that got deferred payments for 10 years. So that is another interesting. He got the Shohei Ohtani treatment there
Yes,
for
he
him, but
did.
just not as much money there. So, but he's the least of the Ducks' problems. He's getting in on the score sheet, and to think that he was possibly going to be someone traded at the trade deadline, he ends up getting extended like way before the deadline. So. Hopefully it's one that the Panthers could take advantage of here for a team still trying to find that next step. They're not a playoff team this year, but they're progressing from there. They might move on from Greg Cronin, as
Yep.
there have been lots of reports about players not liking his style of coaching. Maybe with Pat Verbeek being from the Detroit front office, maybe Derek Lalonde in the offseason goes to Anaheim. So maybe. But your thoughts on this matchup?
Panthers better come to play. This is a game that they should win, but it's going to really come up to them wanting it and making a statement before they go out to California. I know that their backs are against the wall. They're not healthy in the back end. Ekblad is being sorely missed, and on top of that, not everybody's playing at their best. So you know what? Everything up until now, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everything's done. Everything's over. We shouldn't have to really sulk on it. I mean, I'm probably going to sulk on this tonight after this. But the team needs to reset, forget, and just clear themselves up and just say, hey, listen, let's just take it one period at a time. We had a great start last game. How do we multiply that into the next periods that we're going to be playing against I'll say the Ducks are going to give them a game. It's going to
Yeah.
be a tough game. So, I could see them honestly winning maybe 4-2 with an empty netter. But it's going to depend on if they want it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last time the Ducks were here, the Panthers blew a lead in the in the game where also I believe Barkov got hurt on a lower body injury. That was on MLK Day last year, from what I remember. And then before ending up losing in overtime against the Ducks. So the Panthers, they've had success, but nothing's guaranteed these days because once again, teams come to play the Stanley Cup champions. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Fortunately, the Panthers lose by a final score of 5-2 against the Detroit Red Wings. But big one on Saturday, right before the Panthers head out west. So tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Thank you again for having me on, man. Sorry, it was not the happiest of pods this week, but hopefully we can get it going next week. But you guys can follow me on X at Prudential0, and look forward to staying up late next week.
Awesome. See, thank you so much, and see you next week, my friend.
See you next week.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Sue Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.